How's it going, guys? Henry once again. In this video, what I want to talk about is setting up the name for your Shopify store. I'm going to give you a bit of guidelines on picking a name for your Shopify store. What are the do's, what are the don'ts, and what do you need to keep in mind when picking the name for your store. So watch along for the next couple of minutes and I will dive straight into it. So there's one thing for sure. A lot of people spend too much time, in my opinion, trying to come up with the name of the store. Some people spend weeks, some people spend even months, which is ridiculous to me, to pick a name for a Shopify store, because in the grand scheme of things, the name of the store isn't going to be the deciding factor in whether your store is successful or not. It might have a percentage of the results that you're going to get. Of course, the name does matter to an extent. It is important, but it's more of like the 20%. If you heard of the 80-20 rule, it's more of the 20% that's going to determine the success of your score, rather than the 80%, which is your initial research, the copy on your store, the elements on your store, the traffic, the quality of traffic that you're setting up to the store. That's the 80%. The name of the store, of course, it matters, but in my opinion, it's not the most important. So it's better to just go with something quickly and set it up. But to keep in mind, there are, of course, some guidelines that you need to follow to make sure your name does get the most out of it. You take most of the results from the name that you pick. You do want to make sure you pick a decent enough name. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of the guidelines here. I've got about 5 guidelines that you need to keep in mind when picking the name of your store, how to pick a name of the store, and so on. So yeah, watch your head for the next couple of minutes and I'll dive straight into it. Before I dive into the first point that I have, I do want to say as well, what you guys can do when setting up a store is there's 2 ways to go about it. You can go with the general store, of course, or you can go with a niche store as well. So these are also going to determine what kinds of names you go with. A lot of people do start off with a general store, because the benefit of starting up with a general store is, say you have a name like generalfashionbrand.com. Of course, I'm just picking any old name, but if you go with generalfashionbrand.com, what you can do is test multiple products, multiple fashion things, shoes, skirts, whatever, trousers. You can test all those under the general fashion store, and then when you find a winner, then you can eventually narrow down and niche down your store and pick another thing like fancytrousers.com, and then that's a very niche down store. So that's one way to do it. Of course, I just started off with a very niche down store when I set up my first Shopify store, and within a week or so I was getting sales into my store. So of course, there's not necessarily one way to go about it. You can go with the general store to start off with, or you can go with a very niche down store. So that is it. I'm going to dive into point 1. I know I said I would dive straight into it, but finally I'm going to dive into point 1. So the first point that you need to keep in mind when setting up your name for your Shopify store is you want to keep it as simple and as easy to remember as possible. You don't want people you basically don't want to make it difficult for anyone coming across your store to remember the name. You don't want to make it difficult for people to also type in your name when searching for it. You want to make it short and sweet. I would recommend, as maximum, you have 2 words in your name. Like, for example, as I said, generalfashion.com or christianjewelry.com. Two words. I would keep it at most 2 words, short and sweet. And that is something to keep in mind. So first step is keep your name easy to remember and short and sweet. You also, of course, want to make sure the name sounds as premium as possible, because you want to be able to bump up the retail prices on your store. So you don't want to go with the name that sounds really cheap and scammy. If you've got a store like the best shoes in the world 2367.com, it sounds a bit scammy. You might not be able to charge higher perceived prices on your store, because people think it's a lower end brand. So just keep that in mind as well when picking the name for your store. And that's the first point. The second point to keep in mind when picking the name of your store is you don't want to go with the Shopify.com domain, because when you sign up on Shopify, when you start building your store, you do get a free domain on Shopify. Well, it's .shopify.com. So it's a domain, but it's not obviously an official domain name. So what that does, it doesn't look as professional. People trust it less when it's got that domain. So what you want to do as soon as possible is actually buy a domain I buy all my domains from Namecheap.com. So just go to Namecheap, search if the name that you're looking for is available, purchase the domain, and then link it to your Shopify store. So that you should do basically as soon as you've set up your Shopify store, buy the domain, link it to the store, because that makes it just seem a bit more trustworthy. So that's a very important point. Make sure you do that when choosing and picking your domain. The third point in choosing a name for your Shopify store is something that I sort of touched on in the first point, but you do want to keep the name of your Shopify store to about two. I would keep it to about 2 words if possible. What I like to do a lot of the time is choose an adjective and then choose something related to the niche or the kind of products that I'm selling. So for example, I might make a name something like tastywines.com if I'm selling something wine related or in the wine niche. So I've got the adjective describing the kind of stuff that I've got on my store, and then the name like wine or something like Christian jewelry. So that the first is an adjective, the second describes what kind of products are on the store. So that's a very easy method when trying to pick the name of your Shopify store. And yeah, that's the third point that I would say. The fourth thing is not necessarily a guideline as the others are, but this is something that you can use a tool or a couple tools that you can use to find domains that you want to go with for your store. So this just gives you ideas. It gives you free domains that are out there so that you can pick or go with. And I've used them in setting up many stores or setting up stores for clients and so on. There's three tools that I use. One is leandomainsearch.com, one is Namevine, and one is NameMesh. They all work in a similar way. Again, you just go to these sites, you go to Lean Domain Search, and you type in words related to the kind of products you're selling, or words related to what you want your domain to be. And what it's going to do is going to break down the free domains that are out there and kind of mesh together some names that are suitable for your store. So those are very, very good ways. Again, I might have already thrown up some screens so you guys can see what those tools do. But if you haven't already used them, I will link them in the bio below. You can click on these, try those tools out, and it will help you come up with names for your store. So to sum up, guys, the name is not going to be the deciding factor in your store, but of course you want to follow these guidelines that I just mentioned. Use tools like Lean Domain Search, NameMesh, and Namevine to pick suitable names for your store. You want to make sure that the names are short and sweet. Don't make them too complicated. Don't add random numbers into them, and make sure as well you don't go with the free Shopify domain. Actually purchase a domain to make your store look more professional. Once again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a bit of a quick one. Leave me a comment if you leave me a comment if you've got any comments that you want to make on this video. Smash the like button if you did like this content. Subscribe to keep up to date with all the videos on this channel. And thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next video.